was sitting at the foot of my stairs the other day and I was hunched over a little bit, playing on my phone. The world was going just fine. And I feel like a ton of bricks hit me in the head. Completely blindsided out of nowhere, a box of books hit me on the head. I was rolling around on the floor. I saw stars. Uh, Basically, what had happened is we had set a box of kids' books up on the top ledge in the stairs, and one of my wonderful little people in our house wanted to get inside that box of books. That thing was probably 20 to 30 pounds, but it just blew me away. I was rolling around on the floor. I was making not so manly noises at all. And the kids are like, "Are you okay?" My wife's like, "You okay?" And man, I was just like, I was in shock. I'm like, well, I don't feel like I'm broken, but I know from biology that when you have a traumatic injury like that, your brain actually shorts circuit your pain circuits actually get shorted out for a few minutes to allow you to get away from whatever animal or thing just cold clocked you. The idea being that that pain sensation is helpful to organizations to avoid damage, but in that moment, no damage. So that does happen. So I'm like, am I alive? Am I dead? What's going on here? Uh, those of you that maybe have ever been to a football game or you've been watching a football game and this happens, right? Quarterback drops back and he's getting ready to throw, and then from behind, some 350-pound monster just pounds into him. And what happens to you? What happens to you? You go, ooh. I mean, it's like you can feel it, right? We feel that in a way that we don't feel it when the quarterback just gets hit and he sees it coming. I did not see that box of books coming at all. I went from looking at my phone to lights out rolling on the floor. Why do I talk about this for you? The whole idea is that we're going to talk a little bit today about facing dragons. Facing dragons. And when we face things versus when we do not see things coming. Now, I'm really excited to be doing something a little bit different today. I'm recording both on the audio format. If you're hearing me on the podcast, excellent. But I'm also trying my hand at video. So those of you who are seeing me inside my son's room, it's excellent to be giving this a try on the video piece. The one thing that's a little bit different about video is you can't just pause like that and set aside for 15 seconds like you can in the regular audio. So today we're going to be talking about facing dragons, about looking the places that you do not want to go. We're going to go a little bit deeper into some topics of unforgiveness, bitterness, some of the things that a lot of people don't really like to talk about. I have been informed a whole lot here recently, really from two different speakers. One being Andy Stanley, who is a pastor out of Atlanta, Georgia. Listen to some of his stuff in the mornings, as well as a professor and speaker called Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson talks on these. And I just kind of take notes from time to time and wanted to share some things that I found poignant for you guys. So I'm blending a couple of different ideas together to do something that's kind of my own here. And so we're going to talk about dragons, right? So what is the dragon? Dragon is an amalgam of different predators, right? So it's a snake, it's a hawk, it is a cat, right? All those things are pulled together in this simple symbol of a dragon. Kind of an interesting fact, all cultures have dragon myths. And you would think that all cultures around the world would not have the same thing if there wasn't a reason for it. I think it's because these are some of our natural predators as mammals, right? One of the things that I've learned over the last little bit is that cats, the smell of cats, actually induces fear in mice. The mouse could never have been around a cat, not even know what it is, but when that smell comes to them, a fear response is created in mice. Same thing holds true with humans. We fear snakes because I think for lots and lots of time back in our history, down deep in our psyche, is this fear of something that is a predator, right? And this is not very far removed. I grew up in West Texas, and we talked about watch for snakes, watch for snakes. That was always something that was drilled into us because there are creatures out there that can hurt you and kill you, especially if you're little. And so why dragons? So facing dragons is really looking at those things inside of your life that you don't want to look at. So we're going to talk a little bit about bitterness, and bitterness is one of these things that really becomes the manifestation of resentment, of loss, of betrayal. Bitterness is one of these nasty, nasty things that a man or woman can hang on to for a long period of time and kind of get away with it to a certain extent. It's like the pill that you swallow that keeps doing damage to you, and it does spill out into the people that are around you. Bitterness is really kind of the opposite of gratitude. It makes you, it can really, if you feed bitterness over time, it can turn the evil parts of inside of you to start to take over. And I really think of it this way: bitterness, it fertilizes the evil within. It takes these demons that are inside of you and me, and it lets them get stronger. In the one of the sermons I was listening to by Andy Stanley, he put it this way. He said, "Bitterness lets the demons of your soul go down into the basement and lift weights." So, and what happens is whenever you let these things happen, when you let bitterness take hold in your heart, these demons come out at the worst possible time. They come out when your guard's down, when conditions are really at their worst. And that's just kind of how that works. It's not like a judgment thing on anyone who's carrying around bitterness. It just happens, right? So what am I really imploring, and we're going to explore today a little bit, imploring you to go down to the basement of your soul, fight those demons, and fight them when you're strong, when your eyes are open, when you're not blindsided. That box of books, if I would have seen them coming, I could have like put my arms up and tensed my body and gotten really ready, and then sure, it would have hurt to get smacked by a 20-pound box of books, 30-pound box of books falling from a one-story height, but it wouldn't have hurt near as bad. Same way with your quarterback. If he's able to tense his body up, put his shoulder down a little bit, he takes that 320-pound lineman smacking him, it's not near as bad. We don't make the ooh sound. I think it's because you're ready for it. And so the dragons that are in your world, we want to find ways to actually root those things out, to go after them. But God, it stinks, man. Like, I don't want to do that. So why do people not like take care of the things that they know that they need to do? We're not talking about something that the preacher says you should do or something Matthew says you should do. It's something by your own standards that you know you need to do. You see a problem. You know what it is. That may be having a tough conversation with your boss who you think's taking advantage of you. It may be having a conversation with your spouse. Maybe it's about your personal, intimate life, and you know things aren't what they're supposed to be there, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but we got to have that discussion. Maybe it's in your soul and your spirit where you are putting off that conversation with God, that really angry, why did you let this happen to me conversation, something that's nasty that you don't want to face. I really encourage you to root that tough stuff out. Talk to your parents, your in-laws, the ones that are really having a tough time. It's a heck of a lot easier just to say, well, we'll see them next Christmas. We don't need to take care of the problems that I know need to be taken care of. Kind of a side note here about bitterness, and it's connected to this idea of rooting things out because you don't want to lament the things that you're bitter about. Say you're mid 40s, you're not where you'd like to be in your career. You're not where you need to be by anyone's standards, including your own. Your career is stagnated. You connect to your spouse far less time than you really should, and your kids' relationships seem like they're beyond repair. You're looking around saying, golly, there's a ton to be bitter about. What I want to implore you is you may need to go back into your past and root out some of the causes of what got you here. You may need to do that. Your brain will not be able to let go of those old hurts until you are able to describe, at least to yourself, what you think actually happened. You got to not BS yourself, though. It's super easy to BS yourself and say, well, it was her fault. Or, those people screwed me over in my job and I did everything right. And I actually got fired because I was a person of integrity. Hmm, those things are maybe partly true. You're not talking to anybody but yourself. Be completely honest with yourself. Acknowledge some of those parts of your past that are problems. Acknowledge the part that you caused. It can be extremely freeing and extremely hard to stop bullcrapping yourself. Look back at some of those things that have not gone wrong or that have gone really, really wrong. But what I really want to implore is you got to move ahead. I mean, you may have wasted a lot of time in your life. You may have seen some really, really hard things. And I'm not discounting those hard things that you've seen. But you got to look at what do I have today in front of me? Is there a dragon that I need to go root out in its lair where it's strong? Well, it's better to go after it whenever you have your eyes open and you're ready to rock, as opposed to waiting until that thing gets stronger and stronger and pounces on you when you are least expecting it. And what I would tell you to really encourage you is you got to pick something that you would actually do. Okay. Now, we've kind of talked about, what the problem is. And you can pick something that you should do, but don't do that. Pick something that you will actually do to make it better, even if it's just a little bit better. It is amazing what human beings can do over just a couple of months of not doing things that they know to be harmful or doing a couple of things that would be helpful. Stop lying to yourself. And it's amazing how if you start that trajectory and start getting some small wins in your marriage, some small wins in your work, stop talking about how you get passed over for promotions and say, what is the one thing that I know I could do a little bit better today? You know what it is. It's just a lot more comfortable to whine and get fallen down into the bitterness. And I'm not talking about bitterness 100% of the time. We fall into these little funks of bitterness almost as defense mechanisms because, it's a lot easier to just be bitter about the fact that you got passed over for promotion. It's a lot harder to go ahead and sit down and ask your horse's rear end boss, again, not my boss currently, just in case you're listening. It's a lot easier to ask your horse's rear boss to say, hey, what do I need to do better? And be honest and really want to know the answer to those questions. That's a lot harder. Who knows how far you can go if you take these small steps and get just a little bit better over time. We don't actually know what the upside is. I do believe that a man or woman caught on fire to the real purposes of their life, to put away some of the nasty, malevolent bitterness inside of them, and really attack something with virtue, attack something of value that has almost transcendent value, really get into the purposes that God may have for your life. I don't think there's a ceiling on that. I think that trajectory stretches all the way up to heaven, all the way up to eternity. And God wants this for you. He wants you to be out of the pits of your life and wants you to be working towards things that are better. Now, that sounds very Pollyanna-ish, and hey, just think about the problems you have, put aside your bitterness, and things will be fine. Now, life is not going to be that way. You're going to continue to suffer. You're going to continue to have problems, and you're going to have some really big, nasty problems in this world. But I think that if you can face the dragons of your life and vanquish them, you get rewarded with a satisfaction and a peace that makes the other suffering that you can't do anything about anyways, makes it worthwhile, makes it something that is part of your life, but the good then outweighs it. In the scripture of John, right in the very beginning of the John, it said that the light came into the world and the darkness will not overcome it. I believe that. I believe that the light came into the world through a man named Jesus, through the Logos, the Word. And I think this truth is a light that shines into the darkness. So if you get down into those nasty pits of your soul, you take this courage to go forward and start rooting some of that garbage out. Know that Christ goes with you. The light goes with you. The power of the heavens and the earth follow believers into those nasty places. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to be successful. You may go fight that dragon and he may burn you to a crisp. It could happen. The discussion with your wife could blow up into some craziness. Trying to make things better at work could get you fired. All of those things are on the table. We are not guaranteed success. But what else are you going to do? Are you going to just swim around in the bitterness of your soul, swim around in the failure that you know is going to come if you don't take these steps? You don't have a better plan but to tell the truth to yourself and others, to root out the tough things in your life, and really seek and find those awesome things that God has laying out for you. I'll tell you one last thing. In the study and preparing for this, we looked at the word sin. I looked at the word sin. Sin's actually the derivation of a Greek word named hamartia, which means to miss the mark. It's an archery term. Missing the mark or to err. And I think what happens is a lot of times we don't even aim. We just know there's a problem. We feel it in our hearts and soul, but we don't aim. You know why? Because when you aim, you can miss. When you miss, you can miss big. And what else are you going to do, though? Sin is missing the mark. It's falling short. And so I really encourage you this week to take one bit of action. You know one thing that you need to do or you need to stop doing. Break that thing down into its very smallest component. So if I know I need to have a tough conversation with my in-laws, my very smallest component might be just have the courage to write down the problem to myself. That might be a really small thing. You could write it down. You could do that. And then I could talk to my spouse about the problem that I see that we maybe need to tackle with our in-laws or my in-laws. Again, my in-laws are great if you guys are listening. But take it down to its smallest component part. And then I encourage you, do something. Act. Face the dragons in your life. Root out those things. And watch out for the big boxes. Thanks a bunch.